Hello, Global Theater. My name is Jerry Fielka. Today is January 18, 2023. We want to thank Rob Grant and his amazing podcast, I'm Probably Wrong About Everything. It's an honor and a pleasure to be here with Jon Rappoport. Jon, where in the heck are you calling in from?
This is, let's put it vaguely, the southeastern U.S. undisclosed location.
I like that. Vaguely is one of my favorite words. The first question, Jon, is what is the best thing for a human being?
Wow. That's a heck of a start. The best thing for a human being, love and imagination.
Oh, I love that. You know, a lot of people say love, but they don't tag it with imagination. What's your favorite form of information? How it comes into you?
The written word. In fact, um, you know, with video taking over for many people, I have gravitated more toward the written word because, that's how I was brought up, I guess you could say, being 84 years old now. So my emphasis has been more and more on writing, as opposed to just presenting information, because I value writing. And so that's how I get my information, because if I want to actually home in on evidence, information about a given subject where the details are really important,
Yeah.
I have a lot of trouble with video. I mean, it goes by. I would have to stop it every minute and go back and make notes. Whereas if it's on the page, the details,
Yeah.
okay, I read it, I go back, much easier.
Did you get your love of reading more from the way your parents raised you as an example? They told you to read, or on your own?
At first, it was my mother. She and I sat down, I have a vague memory, side by side, before I went to first grade.
Yeah.
We had these little like Jack and Jill books, whatever.
Yeah.
And she had been a school teacher. So she taught me to read somewhat before I went into first grade. So I was kind of primed because of her. That's how I started out. And then the love of reading took hold once I was, literate enough to be able to, say, go to a library and pick out a book.
Jon, fill in the blank. I don't know what I think until I
Until I either find out by investigation or write it down on the page. And that second one is important because
yeah.
there's a lot of there's a spontaneity about writing. So no matter what you're intending to say, things come out that you can't predict once you're in the process of doing it. And then you find out what you're thinking, or what you could be thinking, or what you're deciding to think, or whatever it is. Inevitably, once you're in the flow, things are coming up on the page and you're going, wow, okay, and then you're thinking in a new way.
Beautiful, Jon. That's McLuhan says, I don't know what I think until I say it. And Joan Didion said, I don't know what I think until I write it. Can humans think without language?
Yeah, I believe so. Pictures, it's a little bit foreign to me because I do think a lot in language, but the Egyptian language, for instance, always ancient, fascinated me because it's pictures.
Yeah.
Okay, so I have to presume, even though we can translate these pictures into language, that the ancient Egyptians were thinking in pictures. This
Yeah.
picture, that, this one, and that one, and that one. So yeah, absolutely can think in pictures. Sure. I'm not sure how that goes. Depends on what you're trying to think about. I mean, but absolutely yes.
Yeah, Chomsky says a language is not just words, it's culture, a tradition, a unification of community, a whole history that creates what a community is. What do you do when language breaks down? When language doesn't work, what do you do?
You're reading my mind. you know? Oh, wow. I think about that every day
Yeah.
because fewer and fewer people, it seems to me, get language as words. It's becoming more and more simplified and reduced down because of school education and fascination with pictures, video, etc. All kinds of reasons for that. But so there's a double impulse. You're sitting there writing and you're thinking, okay, I want to boil this down for the reader so it's completely clear. So there's no misunderstanding about what I'm trying to impart here. But at the same time, there's this overriding impulse to proliferate, to go off instead of two sentences to make 20
No.
sentences.
Yeah.
And that's where the spontaneity occurs. So this is the breakdown to me is a very serious thing because, well, I mean, I sat in on one of your weekly meetings, Finnegan's Wake. I mean, you're talking there about fantastical complexity. So what happens if suddenly or gradually nobody shows up because nobody can deal with that anymore?
Right.
I mean, that's a serious breakdown. And then,
Yeah.
and then you're sitting there thinking, well, I can work with this, but I'd like to have at least a few other people here to work with. Come on, right?
Well,
It's
that's what
serious.
Chomsky was saying it's called. But let's say you're standing in line at the store or something, you encounter a person on the street and you have communication breakdown. What do you usually do just in general? I mean, what's an approach you have?
I would try to sum up in a few words what's going on,
Yeah.
and then to put a cap on it.
Yeah.
I'm not going to try to look. I think we really need to understand.
Right.
You could see that's not working. So then it's like a few words to put. Okay, this is the way. This is it.
Yeah.
That's it, and then walk away.
Very good. Here's two questions from Alan Turing in 1950s. One, is thinking a function of the soul?
Absolutely.
Wow.
You may not be consciously able to trace that connection, but it's always there. And
Yeah.
that to me, I'm glad you brought that up because that to me is one of the basic, maybe the basic reason why a writer keeps writing.
Yeah.
Because let's face it, after you've written maybe 1,000,000 words, there's a tendency to say, enough. Like I've said it what I had to say, but there's something in you that's saying, no, you're just beginning.
Compulsion.
Because you don't, the soul has much more to express. Plus, you're still in the dark as the writer about what the connection is between what you're writing and the soul and your soul.
Yeah,
So,
that's good.
but it's a total mystery.
Yeah, you're anticipating a question in two up But let's do the other Turing question is, can machines think?
No,
Very good.
bullshit. No, absolutely. I mean, the whole process and AI is coming on like a storm. I mean, like a
Yeah.
storm now. Which I could talk about at length because this chat thing that somebody just
Yeah.
came up with at Microsoft.
Yeah.
I've worked that a little bit, asking
Yeah.
questions, saying compare these two pieces of writing, and it can do it,
Oh, yeah.
but it's so lame. I mean, the writing is just like, oh, come on, man. I don't, it's not
Yeah.
like it's grammar school, but it's just empty kind of verbosity that you would get, I don't know, reading the New York Times or something,
Technical writing. Well,
or technical. There's a pattern, you
yeah.
follow it, and blah, blah, blah.
Well, you anticipated this one, John. Does the brain more detect consciousness or create it? Like, is consciousness there bubbling away and we're detecting it, or are we more creating it?
Detecting.
Yeah.
Detecting.
Wow.
And that's part of the complete um, confusion and misunderstanding of psychiatry, medicine, et cetera, because, and physics even, because they have to put the brain first, because that's all they're doing. They're working with,
Yeah.
materialistic functions and math and so on. Okay, fine. But if you say, well, since the only thing we can work with here is the brain, then we have to say that consciousness emanates from the brain because we know we're conscious. So it's got to be the brain that's causing it because that's what we're working with. That's all we've
Yeah.
got, and that's their focus. That's a complete 180 from the truth. It's like I could say, look, I'm focusing on this room. Therefore, that's all I know, and therefore I have to explain everything in terms of this room because
Yeah.
that's all I believe exists.
Yep.
Naturally, I'm going to turn out some of the most incredible bullshit that anybody's ever seen because of the limitation of my focus. So if the researchers are focusing only on the brain and saying we have to derive everything that we know about consciousness from studying the brain, they're going to come up, pitifully short.
Yeah. What's faster, speed of light or speed of thought?
Thought. Way fast.
Man, you're knocking them out of the park. There's no right or wrong answers to any of these questions, but that one you got right. So you're a poet. You're a poet. Andre Lord, the great poet, said, you can't dismantle the master's house using the master's tools. Yvonne Rainer responded to her and said, you can if you expose the tools. What new tool do you suggest?
The one suggestion that I've made to writers over the years is, and I just mentioned a few minutes ago, proliferation is the key.
Yeah.
You keep on doing it. You keep on writing. You think you're done, but just keep on.
Yeah.
I once had a publisher, and we had a number of discussions on the concept of the endless novel. There would never be a beginning, middle, and end. It would just go on forever.
Yeah.
That's to me the key, because once you take that on, as difficult as it may be at times, as the writer, to keep proliferating more and more and more and more, you discover more and more and more and more.
Yep. I'm a student and I appreciate what you just said. It resonates with Frank Zappa. He said, don't stop and keep going. And, very few people bring up the wake before I did. So I'm really impressed you brought up Finnegan's Wake. It is an endless loop. It ends mid-sentence on page 628 and it picks up mid-sentence on the first page. So you never stop. It keeps going forever and ever. So what do you worry about when you go to bed at night?
I don't know the exact answer to that, but I'm aware that, let's put it this way, I've got sub stories running. Like, they're running, and you see, you get a feeling for them when you're just lying there, and some of those sub stories are not pleasant, so they lead to the sensation of worry. But
Yeah.
if you can sort of realize, okay, hey, the wheels are spinning. The stories are, moving on their own. Who gives a shit?
Yeah.
Just let it go, baby.
That is so cool. It's McLuhan's main thing. How do you turn a breakdown into a breakthrough? A rejection into a redirection. That sub-story thing was heavy. Now, thank you, John. McLuhan learned from Ezra Pound that artists are the antenna of the race. And by artists, I mean political activists, poets, painters, jazz musicians. They're broadcasting and detecting the hidden psychic effects of our inventions, so we might learn to cope with what we don't like about the inventions. So I ask you the question that Marshall probed his whole career. Why do we ignore the hidden psychic effects of our inventions, even though the artists are broadcasting them to us?
Wow, that's a big question, Jerry. Why do we ignore it? Yeah. I don't really know the answer to that one. It's obviously, it's kind of like you could say to somebody, why are you sticking with your programming?
Yeah.
You can see, can't you, that it's very limited,
Yeah.
that you're not going to get outside this thing. You're going to just keep on sticking with it. And,
Yeah.
so why don't you get outside it?
Yeah.
Well, I don't know. It's, I'm familiar with it. It's good. I like it. I think it's the right thing to, all that kind of excuses and so forth. Um, it's an addiction, I would say. Some
Wow.
sort of addiction to the programming,
Yeah.
as opposed to let's unearth this hidden uh, meaning of doing all this technology.
Yeah.
What are we doing when we're doing all this technology? Really, and
How's it
really,
shaping?
I
Yeah.
think we could, and I think maybe McLuhan is suggesting this. We could rise to the level of seeing it as art.
Yeah.
And if we did that, then everybody could kind of go, okay, let's
Yeah.
relax now. We got that piece. We know now why we're, obsessively inventing more and more machines and so forth, because it's art. Okay,
Yeah.
so we don't have to use them to destroy. We don't have to use them to control. We don't have to use them to forget and all these other, and destroy the world around. We don't have to do that because we can shift gears. We can make
Yep.
different kinds of machines, and it's
Yep.
art. You don't have to paint the same freaking painting over and over. You can go over here and do this one.
Yep. Yeah. Winston Churchill said, "We shape our buildings, then they shape us." And Marshall just flipped it into, "We shape our tools, then they shape us." So, do artists have moral obligation?
I think so, but sometimes the obligations are expressed without any sense of obligation. In other words,
Oh, well put.
they they just bloom like flowers. I'm thinking of the painter Paul Klee.
Yeah.
You know, he would start a painting and then come to a place where he couldn't think about what else to do. I mean, everything was sort of spontaneous. So then he would start another painting, same deal. So he would have 6 or 7 going at the same time. And then he would, after the 7th, when he had stopped, he'd go back to number 1. And now he had all kinds of new ideas about that one. And he would just keep on going between 1 and 7 and back and back. Well, he was not consciously expressing some moral obligation to everybody else, although many other artists do that directly. But in his case, it just bloomed, you know. And if you look at his work with an open spirit, it's uplifting in a way. It's just like, okay, this guy's a jazz musician. He's improvising. He's free. I can take some of that for myself. And if I do, I'm not so intent on being caught in, you know, 50,000 different traps all the time. It's liberating, and liberating. I think an artist who liberates is exercising in a way a moral obligation, but not on purpose. It's just happening.
Yeah. It's the Eskimos' word for their pottery is breathing. It's breathing. That's what Duchamp said at a cocktail party. Guy goes, "What do you do?" He goes, "I'm a breather."
Wow. I'm a breather.
John, do evil people exist, or does evil use people as a vehicle?
I think evil people exist.
So
I think, okay, so let's suppose evil is a tool. Okay, so if we looked at it that way, the evil person invents the tools, and then the tools, you know, control him or invent him.
yeah,
But I think there are evil people because they dedicate themselves to evil. I mean, it's not just somebody one day is a good person, he's walking down the street and evil takes him over, and then he's completely different. I don't see it that way. I see it more as uh, it's a choice, but it's not like an uncontrollable force that takes you over. I
right.
mean,
Well,
I've seen evil people.
the question really is how do you advise someone to deal with an enemy? And let me set it up first. Alan Watts says, if you acknowledge your enemy, you empower them. Coppola stole from the mob and the samurais. Keep your friends close and your enemies closer. JFK said, forgive your enemy, but don't forget their name. And Fellini says, I need an enemy. So it's a lot of thoughts, John. The basic question is how do you advise someone to deal with an enemy? But first, how would you respond to Alan Watts? If you acknowledge your enemy, you empower them.
I think that at let's call it the highest level, maybe, or a very high level, that's true. If you can pull that off, you
Yeah,
know,
right.
seeing somebody close up who's, you know, got very hostile intent, and you're just not acknowledging that they're an enemy. I mean, if you can pull that off, you know, kudos.
Kudos.
Not the easiest thing in the world. So yeah, I mean, that's true. But I don't know. I mean, I think I want to speak out against people that I believe are public enemies,
Yeah.
and I do
Yep.
all the time. So
That's
it's not that I'm just okay. I can draw back from that and say, all right, I see, you know, there's a kind of a pattern here of conflict, war, destruction, fighting, one side versus another, blah, 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 divide and conquer, all of this kind of stuff. But I am not there. I am removed from it. I'm immune to it. I'm above it. Yes, at moments that's true, but as a steady state for me, not so.
Yeah.
I I would sometimes like it to be true, and I think ultimately it will become true at some point, and it is true at this highest spiritual level. But we're here now, and this is a place of conflict.
Yep. So, John, you said speak out. That was a great strategy, and I know you speak out and you continue to speak out. Tell us the tipping point that got you to there. You're sort of going to college, you're studying philosophy, you're doing poetry, painting, jazz, piano. Where's the tipping point for philosophy and investigative journalism where you go, that's what I'm going to do. That's my calling. I'm going to pursue philosophy. I'm going to pursue investigative journalism.
Let's say 1986, medical. That was the key for me. Okay, there's something medical going on at a deep level here in the society that's very bad. I don't have a grip on it, but I can investigate it.
Right.
And that led to, years and years and years and years of work because um, these people are supposed to be healers.
Yeah.
And if they're doing, a lot of them, if they're doing the opposite of what they're supposed to be doing, while under the cover of saying that what they're doing is healing, that really got under my skin,
Yeah.
you know. So I said, okay, let's put everything else aside and let's go here and start investigating. And that's what really turned on the switch for me.
That was beautiful. Utah Phillips says anarchy is making rules for yourself and not other people. Who's entitled? Now that's not quite the word I want, but who's entitled to make the rules? Who should make the rules or who makes the rules? You know what I'm saying? Because
Yeah,
people
yeah.
could fight about the word entitled or should, but it's generally who makes the rules.
One of the reasons that I admire your work so much over the years is because you're doing it where you are. You've expanded out a lot, but there's a lot of things that you do that are local from where you are. So to me, the rules should be made there.
Yeah.
We need vast decentralization of power.
Yeah.
Way too, if people can't see this, they're just totally blind. There's so much power at the top on every level, no matter what field of endeavor or issue or topic or that's vital you want to look at. You're looking at too much corrupt power at the top.
Yeah.
And although I don't agree completely with Lord Acton when he says power corrupts, absolute power corrupts absolutely.
Yeah.
As a functional description, it's true. So
Yeah.
the more power you pile up at the top, the more corruption you're going to get. And conversely, if more and more power is taken at the personal and local level, then that's where the rules need to be made among the people who know each other. What do you think, Joe? About this
Yeah.
shit that's going on, and what do I think? And what are we going to do? What should we do? If people can talk to each other where it affects them and actually take action, which is not the easiest thing in the world, I know, but to me, that's where the rules make sense. Locally and then individually, the final counsel is the individual with himself.
Yeah.
Because if it isn't, then we're lost completely. I mean, then we're just like connected blobs. Every person has to have a conscience where they say, okay, somebody made that rule. What do I think of it? Am I going to follow it or not? I mean, it's my choice ultimately. It's not like, somebody came down from the beginning of the universe and said, this is it. Somebody said, you got to do this. Okay, what do I think of that? Am I going to follow that or not? It ultimately goes back to that.
Yeah. Well, it follows up perfect with this, John. I mean, what you said continues this thinking is John Basil Barnhill, the socialist, said, where the people fear the government, you have tyranny. Where the government fears the people, you have liberty. In 2005, the film V for Vendetta paraphrased it. People should not be afraid of their governments. Governments should be afraid of their people. So, how do you personally handle false fears? And I know you've talked about speaking out and taking action. So, my normal question in those regard is, how do you handle it? How I would even add, how have you found the most efficient and effective way to handle it? And just so we suss out false fears for a second, it's like the war on drugs. Well, that guy on KPFK said, who worked for the government, he says, you can't have a war on drugs because drugs don't fight. And you can't say no to drugs because drugs don't talk. So you know what I'm saying. The war on drugs, the war on poverty, the war on terrorism. How can we really effectively, besides speaking out and taking action, what have you learned in your many years? How do you handle false fears?
You expose the falsity.
Yeah.
You take it apart. It's like
Yeah.
a little machine. You say, okay, you see this piece here? This is some fakery because they're telling you this and that.
Yeah.
That's not true. Okay, put that aside. Here's the next piece. What do you think of that? Is it, think about that. They say this and that and the other thing. That's not the case. This
Yeah.
is the case. And after a while, you disassembled the thing, and then you go to another thing and you disassemble that. And you say, okay, let's talk about the government promoting fear. How about that issue? When the people fear the government. Well, yes, that's really bad. But then, then there's the government cultivating fear
Yeah.
among the people so that the government can say, hey, there's no reason to be afraid because we can solve that problem for you. And in the process, of course, we're going to put you more in the hole than you already were before. And we're not going to tell you that we created or encouraged the fear in the first place. So, government and in significant part is a fear machine. It's asking the question, what fear can we spread today?
Yeah. There's another quote I wanted you to talk about for a second, and it's in regards to when I first started asking, are we hardwired for competition? I'll suss this out a little. Nassim Taleb says, games were created to give non-heroes the illusion of winning. In real life, you don't know who really won or lost, but you can tell who a hero is. So when I told that to someone, they said, well, villains don't think they are bad. They want control. Heroes want freedom. And Gregory Bateson said, if the criminal gets caught, does he go, whoa, I did something morally or socially wrong? Or does he go, hey, my criminal skills weren't up to snuff that day, I got caught? So there's a lot of thinking there. The basic question, and you can go off wherever you want. The basic question is, does punishment work?
Well, the first thing I think of is, does non-punishment work?
Wow, no one said that.
Yeah. I mean, it doesn't seem to. I wouldn't think it would. You know, if the city of Los Angeles suddenly said, "We came up with this great idea. We're not going to punish anybody for anything because punishment doesn't work. We know that now." Okay, so how's that going to work? Okay, from now on, we're in the age of non-punishment. Here we go. Let's see.
Yeah.
Let's see what happens. Well, you could predict and see. You could sit there and watch it. You could get steamrollered by it. I don't know. So punishment does remove people from the street, the world. I mean, that's what it supposedly does. You take
Yeah.
somebody who supposedly did a bad thing and you say, we don't trust you anymore. You did this, so we're putting you over there, and you're in a cage now. You can't come out for this long. So it does that. What else it does? Deterrent, this, that. It seems common sense to me that there's some deterrent in punishment. I mean, criminals think about punishment all the time. Even if, like you say, the criminal, when he's caught, says, "Well, my skills weren't up to snuff today." What skills? The skill of getting away with it.
Yeah.
He's thinking about getting away with it. So he's thinking about punishment. I mean, that's on his list of things to avoid. That's about the best I can do with it. I mean,
Well, that you're a comprehensive listener and thinker, John. That was really heavy. No one's ever flipped that. But you'll love one of our dear friends who taught me peace activist, Phil Chamberlain, said, in regards to capital punishment, he says, on your driver's license, you mark, yes, I'm for capital punishment, or no, I'm not. So if you ever get caught killing someone and they're going to kill you, they look at your car and they go, we can't kill them. Isn't that was such a what's the difference between rights and responsibilities?
rights and responsibilities. Huh? Well, to me, responsibility is here's what I'm doing, and I'm willing to pay the price of the consequences, whatever that is. It's awareness of responsibility has something to do with I'm thinking about what I'm doing. I believe it's the right thing to do. It's certainly not harmful. And I'm aware of the consequences, or at least some of the consequences, and I'm willing to accept them because I stirred the pot by taking action. And so certain things are going to happen. It's, as opposed to somebody who says, whatever I did, it's not my fault. My life is not my doing, and it's not my fault, and I have nothing to do with it, and all that kind of stuff. Rights. I mean, I just go back to freedom. Freedom is the basic natural state, which means the individual can do whatever he wants to do as long as it doesn't impinge on the freedom of another.
Yeah.
I mean, it's pretty simple if people can grasp that.
Yeah.
And there can be touchy situations and all of that, yes, but still, it's like, okay, you're free. And so the society has to express that in some way as a right. the right actually predates whatever society says to enshrine the right to freedom. But so a right is something, it's written down in documents in the law. That's what I think of when I think of rights. Okay, these are the rights. The rights of the individual that follows them. But they're expressions of something much more basic. Everybody knows what freedom feels like, so you don't need a right to know that.
What's the difference between rebellion and revolution?
Well, I think the terms have been so completely destroyed and muddied that it's very hard to describe each one, differentiate. I would say both terms have, insane, sane. There's insane rebellion, insane rebellion. There's insane revolution, insane revolution. So the terms mean basically the same thing, except revolution tends to be suggest something more organized or widespread than maybe rebellion does. But most revolution and rebellion to me doesn't work because it's just somebody else wanting to take power again away from the people that already have it and do the same thing with it that the people were doing with it before.
Yeah.
It's like, I claim you're bad, you're evil, you're oppressive, and that's the ba 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 ba, and so I'm rebelling against you. But really, when push comes to shove, I want what you've got, which is power, and I'm going to do whatever it takes to dethrone you, move into your chair, and exercise the same kind of power you have, maybe with a whole new set of ideas and programs, but it's all going to come down to the same thing. That's most of the time to me.
That very good, John. What's the most unreported story, or not most? What's the unreported story for you that should be reported currently? One of them. What's a major thing that you know? You remember that service we used to always go to every like Santa Barbara? They would list the 10 most unreported stories.
Oh yeah,
That was the greatest. I love that every year, and they got in so much trouble.
Project Censored.
Yeah, Project Censored. So just one for you currently, or it doesn't even have to be current. What's the most unreported story you wish or hoped would have gotten more reported, or you investigated yourself?
Deaths and injuries from the COVID vaccines.
Yeah.
Huge. Huge. And sat on, avoided, twisted, repressed, censored worldwide. And it's been leaking out and leaking out and leaking out, and it's real bad. That to me is the big one.
Got it. How do we keep our governments from going to war?
Wow. Wow. That's like, how would you raise the empire building, Empire State? Now explain how you would do it, and how long you could hold it up, right? Oh, well, let's
I got to tell you, we showed this the Vietnam, the guy who made, I can't think of his name, the Vietnam American Holocaust, Clay's film. And we had 60 people and stuffed in Spano Gallery. And there were like 5 gutter punks in the front row. And I said, the only way we're going to stop our governments from going to war is nobody goes to work and nobody buys anything. And they went, that's what we do. And I goes, that's bullshit because you guys buy potato chips. It's like, it would be really hard to not buy anything
Anything, huh?
and not go to work. So the economy collapses and then it's dependent on war. So,
well, my version of that is something like, let's say you have a, warlike president.
yeah,
He's going to do it. I mean, they all do, but
yeah,
whoever's in there. Okay, so the election comes and there's like a 7% turnout in the whole country to vote.
yeah,
7% of eligible voters show up at the polls. And so, like, CNN reports, well, in the state of Virginia, so and so, won the election with, let's see, 2,000 to 1,925.
yeah,
The other guy says, the whole state? Yeah, that's all the people that voted, man. And in New York, 16 people voted in the whole state.
yeah,
So that used to be called a crisis of confidence
yeah,
in some countries, where you had to now reorganize the whole government because the people were fed up and they said no. So that's my version of don't buy anything, don't go to work.
yeah.
It's, unlikely, but yeah, how do you stop the government from going to war? I mean, you do your damnedest. I mean, for me, one of the issues is always, okay, expose the actual motives here.
Yeah.
Why is the government really going to war? The real reasons that are behind all the propaganda bullshit as to why they're doing this. So, I mean, that's the approach that I would take anyway.
Yeah. And I know, John, you've ran for Congress in 94. You organized boycotts, but your really hardcore work has been investigative journalism, which means exposing. And I appreciate that. A couple more general philosophical questions. What's more important, conviction or compromise?
Conviction by 5 billion miles. I mean, that isn't even close.
Are you more afraid of new ideas or more afraid of old ideas?
Old ideas. I mean, a new idea that's actually an idea, bring it on. I want to see what it is. If it's, not just some, like, somebody's got, here's a new idea. I'm there. If somebody says, we have to reflect on the old ideas of the what, I'm already starting to nod off a little bit. Not that I don't appreciate the old ideas, but if I were trying to promote an old idea, I would say, this is real right now. Okay, that's what you have to know about it. Yeah, somebody had this idea 600 years ago. That's true. And we'll get into that, but it's real right now. I don't like to read about somebody saying, let's go back 600 years, because I just want to explain a thing and whatever. And 16 paragraphs later, I find out what the old idea was. And, it just doesn't have that electricity. If it's an old idea and it's important, then it's important right now. I want to know why it's important now.
Good, John. Is perception reality?
not where I'm sitting. Okay. I mean, I can say where I'm sitting and I'm looking, none of this is really there except through my perception. I don't believe that for a second. But, you know, there was a whole school of ancient Tibetans based on the idea that the universe is a product of mind. And they had techniques and exercises in schools and whatever. And this was before the Tibetan theocracy took hold, with all of the priest class and the rituals and ceremonies of endlessness of this and that and whatever. These were hardcore people who said, if you commit yourself to the creative power that you have, and we got some exercises that will take this to the limit, you know, you will discover eventually, if you succeed, that the universe is a product of mind. And then you can do tricks.
Yeah.
You can do all kinds of tricks. They wouldn't put it that way, but you know.
Yeah.
Okay. So, you know, to me, there's levels. From where I'm sitting now, absolutely not. Perception is not reality, except in the sense of, if you and I get together and say, look, let's con everybody by giving them something to perceive that we claim is there, and then it will become real to them, and we pretend it's real. So then you and I, we enact all these restrictive laws and shit around that to trap everybody and fuck them up and put them in jail and, you know, all kinds of shit. Okay, yes, in that sense, certainly we can perception reality, yes. But in stark philosophical, spiritual terms, you know, this table from where I'm sitting is very real. If I run into the wall at top speed with my head, something bad is going to happen, you know. But I also acknowledge there is this other level where, you know, it's not like that at all. But it's not here. That's somewhere else.
That's one of my faves is Lily Tomlin said, reality is just a collective hunch. So let's go with this. Lewis Carroll says, I believe as many as 6 impossible things before breakfast. Have you believed in any impossible things lately?
All the time, because I'm writing satire now. So I'm taking what I see out there happening in the public sphere, so to speak, and twisting it and writing fictional dialogues, you know, like, you know, the Pope, A Conversation in Hell, Fauci, A Conversation in Hell, this, that, whatever. And I'm just, you know, these are possibilities or impossibilities or whatever that I'm spinning out there, like a satirist writer would.
Yeah.
Because what's happening out there in so many ways appears so beyond the pale and insane to me, more than at any other time in my life, for sure, that my approach becomes often satire. Because, you know, it's kind of like if you see people who keep running in front of trucks and getting run over and over again, and you keep on saying, wake up, you know, and it keeps on happening, eventually you have to go into some other venue of thought,
Yeah.
because that's not working.
Yep.
So now I would interview somebody who is preparing to run out in front of a truck.
Yeah.
Say, okay, so tell me what you're thinking. Well, I do want to destroy myself. I mean, that's a given. Oh, really? Why? And we just, and you write dialogue. Well, that's one of we were talking about, or I was, about spontaneous things happening in art.
Yeah.
I write, or one of these dialogues, and pretty soon, like many playwrights will tell you, the characters are telling you what to say. They're giving you the lines. You create two people talking to each other. Beelzebub is talking to the Pope in hell, and you write 10 or 15 lines of dialogue, and pretty soon you don't have to be thinking about it. It's just okay, and Beelzebub says this, and Pope says that, and you got 1,500 words, and something comes out of that. Some electricity comes out of that. That is what he's talking about when he says 100 and whatever impossibilities before breakfast. Yeah, you're now remaking the world in a way to make it more vivid as to what is really going on at a deeper level.
Beautiful. Well put, John. We got about 4 more minutes. Can you go a little more, or you want to end in 4?
Let's end in 4. I'm starting to fade a little.
Listen, it's really been an honor and a pleasure.
I love talking to you, Jerry. I got to say, I mean, I don't know anybody who's more here and now.
Thank you.
You asked me a question, I answer the question. You say something. I know you heard exactly what I said. I mean,
well, I'm trying. I had good training.
You got it, man. You've had it forever. You've got that among all the other things you got.
Thank you.
One of those things which, because it gives people that you're interviewing or talking to the feeling, well, I can say anything and he's going to get it. I don't have to simplify it or boil it down or, try to embroider it. I can go anywhere and he's going to go there too. It's fantastic.
I appreciate it, because I got to give kudos to you, because many years ago, you asked me to be your doorman when you used to do this. And so I had good training, John. Remember that little place? I love the great memories of standing there in the back, Okay, 3 more and we're out of here. Okay. What question remains unresolved for you? One question that remains unresolved for you.
Why are things the way they are? In other words, why is the world operating the way that it does? Because it's so destructive in so many ways. It's almost like a setup. At times I get the feeling that we're in a setup.
Yeah.
We've been set up. It's a setup. The world, the natural world is fantastic and in many respects beautiful. But there's something going on that feels like a setup, a bad setup, and we're cast in it. So the question occurs to me, why?
Beautiful. What does courage mean to you now?
You're willing to go all the way with what you've got and what you're standing for. You're standing for something and you're willing to go all the way with it. And if necessary, pay the ultimate price, die, because you're going to die anyway, but you're going to die for this, whatever that is. And regardless of how you feel about that or fear or whatever, you try to live up to that.
Yeah.
I'm all in other words. Whatever it is, I'm all in.
I'm all in. Can you forget to die?
That's a great question.
Yeah.
I'd like to.
Very good, John.
Sounds like a good idea. Like you're alive, then you forget, and then It's after you've died and you're still there, but the process of dying, you forgot.
Yeah.
That would be a pretty good deal. I might sign up for that.
I'm going to send you my big essay I just wrote for the Beachhead on this. And John, in closing, what gives you the most optimism?
The individual creative spirit.
Wow.
You know, which is unpredictable,
Yes.
especially in the artist. You know, you don't know what the artist is going to do. That's a good thing. He doesn't know what he's going to do.
That's it.
That's even better. You know, it's that creative approach that, to me, outlasts anything. You know, and I think somehow, some way, someday, could be in 1,000 years, 10,000 years, 20,000 years, whatever it is, everybody's going to be there with that creative spirit, individual creative spirit.
Yeah.
That will be the bottom line that everybody arrives at eventually after they sift through every other possibility, you know, that ends in a blind alley somewhere. You know, I tried this and I thought that was great for a while, but then I ended up in a blind alley at midnight and it was raining and I was naked and it didn't work out. You know, after they've done all of those, then one day they're going to walk into a room and there's going to be paints on the table and brushes and blank canvases. And they're going to say, I think I'll try that. And that is going to be it. That is going to be forever.
Yeah.
That's my most basic source.
That's Lord Buckley, dig infinity. And just to close out these couple joke and a couple quotes, you know, Marshall loved this quote because you just described it in so many ways. The Balinese have no word for art. They do everything as well as they can.
Right.
Isn't that amazing? And so the priest is trying to cross the Canadian border and he's got a flask and the custom officer says, dude, what's in your flask? And the priest goes, it's water. And the custom officer says, give me that. And he takes a swig and he goes, that's whiskey. And the priest goes, it's a miracle. So this is what happened with our hour together, John. Marshall said, communication of the new is a miracle, but it's not impossible. So thanks for bestowing a lot of newness on me, John. It's been so long, and we should do this maybe once every other month or next year or something, because it's been too long.
Something fantastic, Jerry. It's so great to see you. Wow. It's very uplifting.
Uplifting.
You're still doing it, and it's great.
It's uplifting to see you. It's like the lifeblood still flowing. So even though I'm going to hit the end broadcast button, I hope this goes on forever and ever, John.
Thanks, Jerry. Fantastic.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Take care.
Beautiful.